Through her dyna- Through her dynamic career branding process, she helps job seekers and small business owners discover their career passions and showcase their professional superpowers through compelling LinkedIn profiles, standout resumes and websites, pinpoint networking, and memorable interviews. She also co founded a community service program called boomerworks.org, helping 50 plus professionals re career into self employment. Her passion is best captured in her tagline: for every hire, there is a higher purpose. And we welcome Shira. Today, she will be discussing private sector resumes that pop. And Shira is a huge supporter of the Career Gateway, what JCA does for our job seekers, our expos. And we welcome you, Shira, as always. You are terrific. And take it away.
Thank you so much, Jody. Welcome, everyone. So it sounds like you had a really rousing presentation from Nguyen on the government side of things, at least at the local level. And I'm going to do my best to help you all to make the transition over to the private side. Okay, so we all know that we've had a big federal disruption, and I recognize that on this call we have many different kinds of job seekers, right? I know you're from all different backgrounds. Some of you are federal employees, some of you are private sector, some of you are nonprofit, government contractor, right? We've got everybody here. But I definitely want to be sensitive to the moment, all right? And so I am going to be having a little bit more of an emphasis here on helping federal employees make that transition. But please, please, please understand, everybody on this call can benefit from my advice. Even though I have a little extra flavor toward the feds, these tips apply to all seekers. Okay, so especially for federal employees who are wanting to make a shift, we understand, right, that the entire sector has been disrupted, from the federal government, nonprofits, NGOs, everybody that's been affected by the cuts and the funding and so forth. And so I think a lot of you, whether or not you're already in the private sector, may want to consider moving into the private sector. When I say private sector, I'm talking the non-governmental side, right? Not government contractors, because we know there are fewer jobs there right now. So I'm talking about the traditional corporate. And before I get into how to actually redo your resume, really think about it, I really want to talk about, first of all, for just a minute, making that career shift. All right. This is not a light lift, right? This is something that you really need to think about very clearly. And what I'd like to do is give you some tools to think about. And I talk about it in terms of knowing your brand. And the reason why I talk about a brand is that we're in a very competitive market. We have been in a competitive market, but we're kind of in more of a competitive market now. And when you think about a brand, I mean, even think about a normal brand, Apple or Google or Amazon or Nordstrom or all of these things. When you think about it, even as a consumer, there's something that pops with those brands. When you think of Apple, right, or an iPhone, you might think of a technology that's really easy to use and a little bit entertaining. When you think of Nordstrom, you might think of customer service, right? When you think of Amazon, you might think of the wide selection and very, technology friendly, all of those things. But each of those companies has a brand, something that makes them stand out in the market. You do too. All of you have superpowers, whether you know it or not. You're all divinely gifted to serve the world through your work. Understanding those superpowers is going to be very, very helpful when you're making this shift, or even if you're not making an actual shift, even if you're staying right within the kind of work that you've already been doing in the sector that you've already been doing it, you still need to know your brand and what makes you stand out in the market. Because if you think about it, if an employer is sitting there with 7 other candidates and you're all qualified, why you? Why you? So part of the why you is what makes you stand out, right? Meaning, how, in your profession or in your sector, what makes you different. But then, of course, there's also how you stand out for that particular role, and we'll get there. So the 3 things I want to cover here: your superpowers, your knowledge, your skills, and your abilities. What is it that makes you unique about what you do? So, for example, if you are an IT professional, right? And you're in cybersecurity. Maybe you're the person who really, really is all about risk mitigation, right? Or maybe you're the person who's really all about emerging technologies. Or let's say you are in human resources, right? I think we have some folks on the call who have that background. In fact, New Ann is obviously, right? So are you more on the people side of HR? Are you more in recruiting? Are you talent development, that kind of thing? Are you more on the process side of HR? You're really wonderful at infrastructure and databases and HRIS systems and so forth. So really think about the skills that make you stand out. And then I'm going to go over to the right side of this where I call what I call your lane versus your community. And that's a really, really great way to brand yourself, to think about the distinction between what you do, right, your career path versus who you do it for, the industry, mission, or sector, your lane versus your community. It's a great way to split up your brand. Why? Because when an employer is thinking about you, when they are reading your resume, that's actually how they read your resume. The lane, in their case, is the job title. It's what you're going to be doing. When they are sifting, and scanning, not reading, scanning your resume, the first thing that they're looking for is, does this resume fit the lane, right? Does it fit the job title that we're going after? Versus your community, which is the sector, the industry, the mission. Then they put those two things together. First, they look at what you do, then they look at who you've done it for. Most job seekers conflate the two, or most people don't even realize that they should be separating them. And I want you to really be thinking clearly about which is which, because that's going to help you with your overarching brand, and it's certainly going to help you with your shift. Okay. So how I want to help you do that is an exercise. Okay. I'm going to take you through this exercise. I call it Passiontivity. We're not going to have time for you to fully do it right now, but it's something I'd like for you to do at home. And what I'd like to do is I'm going to give you the how this exercise works. Once it's all filled out, you are certainly welcome to take a picture. Obviously, this recording will be available for you as well. But in terms of a homework assignment, feel free to take a picture after I'm done with this explanation. So this idea of passiontivity, and you should know too, because I am a career coach as well as a recruiter, but as a career coach and a resume writer and a LinkedIn profile writer, I use this tool as the very first exercise when I'm formally working with a client. We actually take 2 hours to go through this. And this is an exercise that will help you identify your skills and your motivators and where they intersect. And so here's the first box, and this is the most important box of the whole thing that I call high engagement, where you're highly skilled and highly motivated. These are skills that you believe you're a rock star in. You know it, everybody knows it. You absolutely knock the ball out of the park with these skills. And you love to do this work. You give discretionary effort. Wild horses can't drag you away. It's a big smiley face emoji. This is the work you're great at and you love. And frankly, this is the area that I believe you should be leaning in toward, whether you're going to stay within your career path, whether you're going to be shifting. This is the area that's going to be most important. Secondarily, high skill, low motivation is stopgap work. Now, this is a contrasting box because this is the work that you're perfectly skilled at, but it's work that you tolerate. You don't love it, you tolerate it. Okay, there's a difference. A lot of employers might think, oh, Susie, you're great at XYZ, but inside you're thinking, oh, if I have to do this one more time, you'll do it because you're good at it, but you don't lean into this work. Therefore, I recommend don't lean into it into your brand. You might have to mention these skills, but it's not necessarily anything that you really want to lean in toward a career path. Whether you're shifting or not, I don't recommend leaning into the stopgap work. The third box is professional development, and that breaks down into two sections, want to and have to. There's a difference. In both cases, you kind of feel maybe you should be better, but the want to box is the lean in, right? It's the get to, it's the love. It would be, these are skills that you would love to grow into professionally, and maybe one day you'd like it to be in your high engagement box. The have to is I know I should be better at XYZ. I don't wanna, but I recognize that, I don't know, maybe I have to be better at managing budgets or public speaking or whatever it is, okay? But then the low is the disengagement. So this is where you're not skilled, not motivated, not your jam, as we say, right? It doesn't even fit your personality. And so these are clearly types of skills that you want to stay away from. And certainly you don't want to lean your career into it. So I'm going to take just a second here. Go ahead and take a picture if you like of this, or a screenshot. All right. And then we're going to move on. I'm going to show you practically how to use this tool. So if you want to shift your lane, you can reposition your high engagement skill. So let me explain a concept to you. It's what I call ing versus Here's what I mean. An ing is a skill, something you enjoy. So writing, like most of us know how to write, right? So writing is a skill, or project management, or event planning, that kind of thing. Whereas the is the profession, writer. So writing versus writer, event planning, event planner, that kind of thing. And so here we go, project management, or policy analysis versus policy analyst, that kind of. So what you can think about when you look at your high engagement box, that upper right box, you can say to yourself, are there any skills that I am a rock star at, that I love, that I really want to transition into a full-time profession? And I'll give you an example. So years ago, I was coaching a woman named Jacqueline, and she was a nonprofit executive, and she came to me thinking she just wanted to stay as a, W-2 employee and go become another nonprofit executive. And I had her do the exercise, and she looked at her high engagement box, and I said, okay, Jacqueline, I'd like you to look at all these Ing skills, and I want you to see if any of them pop out to you that you would really, really, really love to lean into. And she looks and she goes, donor event planning. I said, really? She goes, no, you don't understand. I am the best donor event planner. I make them laugh and cry and everything. She goes, I have other nonprofit executives who ask me to help them with their donor events. It's amazing. I said, oh. I said, and then I went another step. I said, it sounds like you really, really love this, Jacqueline. Could you even see it doing as a business? And she goes, yeah. So humanimpactevents.com was born, okay, because she decided she wanted to turn that into a full, self-employment. But I'm going to give you one more story on the W-2 side. I worked with a gentleman years ago also, and he was an attorney, and he decided he wanted to become a writer. How do you turn an attorney into a writer? Well, we looked at his resume and we pulled out all of his writing skills, because attorneys do a lot of writing, and we redid his LinkedIn profile and said, okay, here is the, why he likes to write, the way he likes to write, all of these things. He ended up getting a job as a journalist with a legal trade publication. So now I want to bring in the community piece, because the community is, remember, the industry, mission, or sector. So in his case, we shifted his lane, right, from attorney, legal work, to writer, but we kept his community, which was the legal community. So we kept the lane, shifted the lane, kept the community. That made the employer feel safe. Hey, he gets us, he gets our legal world, but we're okay with him shifting the lane. And today he's an English teacher. He made the full pivot out of legal, and now he's a teacher, okay? So these are things that you can do to take passiontivity, think about your Ing, think about your think about your community. How do you want to shift? And what I'd like to also do is give you some samples here, what I'm calling community pivots. Now, this is specifically geared toward my federal friends, although again, anyone I think could use this concept. So imagine you're in the federal government, right? A lot of you are, and you're in the environmental community. You're with EPA, or you're with TSA, or you're with HHS, or what have you, or USAID, right? So the middle section, right, are the ways in which that could show up for you. So you're an EPA, or you're an NGO, you're with Ocean Conservancy, that kind of thing, or you're an AECOM, you're in GovCon. But then on the right side, I'm calling these non-governmental private sector opportunities. So maybe in the with the environmental folks, maybe you look at environmental engineering company, a firm, or renewable energy firm, or recycling company, or in transportation, right? You look at an airport, those kinds of things. In fact, I have a friend at church, and she recently said to me, she actually works for TSA. Well, guess what? She's actually in an airport. So now she wants to go apply to the very airport that she's been working at. It's fabulous, right? There are ways to do these things, but I want to give you some ideas as to what that looks like. All right. So now we're going to go make a shift. And now we're going to really talk more specifically about how to focus your resume. What I like to do is give you a lens as to the difference between how federal employers look at resumes and how private sector do. And when I say federal, I could also mean region, state, and local, very, very similar. And I think you'll notice this when you listen to Nguyen and how she was explaining to you how she would like your resumes to be written versus how maybe a non-governmental private sector resume. And when I say non-governmental, government contractors often fit more toward the federal employment side, because they're a lot of times sending your resume to the government. So a lot of times they have to kind of make their resumes look more governmental. So that's why I'm emphasizing that this is just a traditional private sector. So let's first of all look at the lens of how one side operates versus the other. So on the federal side or the governmental side, the government is very, very focused on process, on compliance, on regulations. Look, at the end of the day, for the most part, they are keeping us safe. We have regulations, right? They have regulations that they need us to comply with. Documentation, policies, procedures. It's very, very detailed to make sure that all of the boxes are checked and we are a safe and compliant country. The private sector is focused on profits, right? It is what we say, Q1, Q2, Q3, right? What are the profits you made in the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter? It is very much, it's fast moving. It's very, very, revenue driven. It's a completely different mindset than the federal and the government sector. So therefore, on the federal side and the governmental side, they're focused on your competencies. Are you qualified to do the work? Are you qualified? Right? Which is why Nguyen was asking, please make sure, right? What did she say? Put your duties, put your responsibilities. Let us know how competent you are. Are you going to be able to help us, to help our public, right? Stay compliant. They need to know all those details. But on the private sector side, they're focused on results, because at the end of the day, these companies, right? They will only stay in business if they keep their customers happy. So they have to focus on revenue and process. And what did you do? What were the results? How did you make an impact in your organization? And there are ways to do that when you are thinking about shifting from federal to non-federal to private sector, and we'll get into that in just a bit. And so going back to the governmental side, right? What are they looking for in your resume? Details, procedures, right? All of that. But here they're looking for a career snapshot. And I say a career snapshot because this is a very particularly competitive market. But when private sector employers are looking at your resume, they are scanning it. In fact, a lot of times they're not even using eyeballs, they're using AI, okay? And they're going quick, quick, quick. In fact, a lot of employers don't even use traditional job boards. See, like when you're going to the federal government, state, local government, they are required to post their jobs online. Your USA Jobs or Fairfax County, right? You go to their job board, very streamlined, and it's very organized, and everything. It's very standardized. Not so in the private sector. Over 80% of private sector jobs are hidden from the market. They're not on Indeed, they're not on LinkedIn, they might not even be on the corporate website. It just might be an idea in someone's mind. And if you are networking, you might be able to hopefully get seen, get visible from those hidden opportunities. When you're networking with people who do what you do, or in this similar lane or similar community, or you're making a shift, those are the people who can be helpful to you to find those hidden opportunities. So for example, let's say you're working for an agency or a nonprofit, or even GovCon, and you in your network, you might have people take the airport, right? You're a TSA. You're networking, you're around those people, you're around the people who are in the private sector. In your network, you can be letting people know, hey, I'm available. I can transfer my governmental skills into this private sector world because we speak a similar language. But the private sector folks are just going quick, 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 right? They scan your resume and they're like, hey, what's that person's brand? And so that's why I say when you're making the shift, showcase your brand, not just your qualifications. How can you make an impact, a measurable impact for that company fast? That's what they're looking for. So I'm going to give you kind of a laundry list of what I consider to be some of the top areas of what a private sector employer is looking for. Okay, so the resumes of private sector are brief and they're scannable. Brief and scannable. So therefore, we're talking about 2 to 3 pages. Some people say 1 to 2. I have, as a resume writer for private sector work, I have no problem with the 3 pages. You are not going to get screened out if you give 3 pages. You definitely do not want the 5 to 10 page. Right. So unlike what Nguyen was saying, she's like, oh, yeah, keep it concise, but you can certainly have a multiple length resume, a longer length resume. That is not the case here. If you start getting into 5, 6 pages, they're going to lose their interest, right? Because they're going to be looking right at the top and what is most relevant. I recommend you highlight your most recent 10 years. How far back should you go? I get that question a lot. In total, I would say about 20 years, about 20. But the employers are going to be focused on your accomplishments in the last 5 to 10. Going back 20 is fine. If you have to go back longer, only because you really want to highlight something that's relevant, What you can do is you can have a section right at the bottom called prior work experience or prior experience, and then just kind of list company title, no dates, or employer title, no dates. So to try to avoid age discrimination. Unlike a federal resume, which doesn't really focus as much on the design and the formatting of a resume, they just really want the facts. Private sector employers want something well designed, something that sort of pops, right? That's bulleted, not long paragraphs, right? You want something that really kind of catches the eye, and it helps them with the brandability, right? It makes it a little bit snazzy. You need to be ATS friendly. What do I mean by that? ATS stands for the Applicant Tracking System. These are the databases that employers will use. And when I say employers, I mean larger employers. So any employer that's let's say over 200 to 300 employees will typically have an ATS where all of the resumes get poured into this database, and then the recruiter on the back end is typing in keywords and they're trying to find you. Okay. There is a whole art and a science to this. In a couple slides, I'm going to give you an article that you can read about how to design an ATS-friendly resume. There's no exact way to do it, but there are definitely some tips of how to make it more friendly. This is one of the most important tips that I can give you, and that is to make sure that your keywords are tailored to the job posting. I want to slow down when I say this. It is not enough to have one resume or even 2 or 3 resumes. Each resume must be tailored to the unique job posting. And I'm going to give you, and I didn't write this down here, but I want you to hear how to do that. Like, what keywords are you talking about, Shira? So when you look at a job posting, a private sector job posting, there are 3 places primarily where you're going to find the keywords that are most important to that employer, where that employer is scanning your resume for those words. So here are the 3 places. Number 1, the summary section. If there is a summary section, a lot of times they have one. The summary of the job kind of highlights what's this job all about. Really, really read it. Now, remember how I said that employers are scanning your resume? What I have found in all my years of working with job seekers, most job seekers scan job postings. You don't want to scan the job posting. Really read it. Certainly really, really read it to see, am I qualified and am I interested? Really dive into it. Don't just assume just because bullet number 5 is of interest to you that the whole job is really appropriate. Really read it. But that summary section is going to tell you the core outcomes that they're looking for this role. The second area would be the first 3 to 4 bullets of the responsibility section. Why the first 3 to 4 bullets? That's where they're giving most attention. It's sort of top of mind for them. When they wrote that job description, the first things that they put down were the things that were most important to them in the role. That's usually where you're going to find some of the keywords. Now, I'm not saying that bullet 14 won't have a nice keyword, but bullets 1, 2, 3, 4 generally are going to have the highlights. And then the final is the first 3 to 4 bullets of the qualification section. Now, don't overlook that section. The first few bullets are really what to them is most important. And by the way, I should mention that if an employer, which a lot of them do, if they ask for industry experience, and if they say X industry experience is preferred, they kind of mean required. They don't literally mean required, but what they're actually saying is we are going to give preference to people who come from this industry. Now, I appreciate a lot of job seekers are looking at job announcements and you're saying to yourself, oh, but I can do the job, or I'm interested in doing the job. And that's wonderful. But you have to also line up the fact that the employer has business goals that they need to accomplish. And so as such, they're saying to themselves, because they're risk averse, let me say that again, they are risk averse. They're saying, does this person have the sectoral experience? That's why I'm recommending, particularly if you're from anything related to the federal government, GovCon, NGOs, what have you, that you think about the sector that you come from and see if you can move over to the private sector version of that sector, right? Environment, transportation. That's going to make you a lot friendlier for that private sector employer because they're like, oh, well, at least this person has a general understanding of what we what we're all about, okay? So the industry can be important. But again, the first 3 or 4 bullets of the qualification section can be very, very important to think through, okay, what are the keywords I should highlight?
Sure, can I, there are a couple of questions. Can we ask that or,
Absolutely, go for it.
okay. Um, okay, what if the last 10 years was spent on your career sabbatical and not necessarily by choice? What do you suggest?
That's an interesting question. I don't have an easy answer, frankly, okay?
Okay.
I definitely appreciate the question.
Mm-hmm.
I would suggest that what you do is on your resume, and by the way, I'm going to address this for everybody on this call that has any sort of career gap, not just a 10-year one, even a 2-year one, that you have, when you start your experience, right? The first entry, you can say career sabbatical. That's actually a very nice way to say that, or personal
Mm-hmm.
sabbatical is fine. With the dates, have one line of a description as to why you were on that sabbatical. And by the way, if it was for your own personal medical situation, please do not say that. That could
Thank
cause
you.
unnecessary discrimination, right? We don't
Yes.
want anything that would trip over the Americans with Disabilities Act, even though employers are not supposed to discriminate. They're human beings, right? That they might. What you would do then is have a one-line description. You could even say that you were handling a family medical situation because you are your own family. You can do that,
Mm-hmm.
or just taking care, handling a personal family needs. That's fine too. And then you can say ready to return to the workforce as of, April 2025. But I would keep it very, very short. But the rest of your resume immediately thereafter, that's where you do all the rich highlighting of your keywords and your accomplishments, right? To make sure that quickly the employer's eyes go right to the rest of the resume. And also, by the way, the top of the resume, and I'm going to share with you guys an example in a second of a resume that a template that I now use for resumes. But where you can have, the brandedness at the top and all around, but that one little section, you just kind of make a mention and then you move on. Hope that helps.
Okay, that's great. That's a great suggestion. If they are looking for these buzzwords, it almost seems like someone is getting a job because they know the right buzzwords. Explain that, Chair, because
Sure. So they're not
yeah,
actually getting the job because they know the right buzzwords.
right,
They're getting more noticed more quickly.
exactly,
Have the right buzzwords, not getting the job. Getting the job is a whole other thing.
right.
Culture fit and all these things. Yeah, you're not getting the job, but getting noticed, sure. And I'll give you an example. So let's say you are driving right down the highway, you're driving down 95, right? And you see a billboard and it's McDonald's and they're trying to sell you French fries. Okay, they are not going to list all the ingredients of those French fries on that billboard. You wouldn't see it, you wouldn't notice it, you don't have time. You're scanning, you have a nanosecond to see their billboard. What are they going to do? They're going to put fries and a potato farm. And they're going to say, right? They're like letting you know we're selling fries. So they're just giving you a very, really quick snapshot. It's the same thing. And then hopefully you walk into McDonald's and then you can check out the ingredients if you want, right? It's that kind of thing. So definitely keywords are more likely to get you noticed. It's not the only thing that will get you noticed because as I
Hmm.
networking is super important. In fact, somebody said yesterday a phrase to me, which I love. He says, if you're not networking, you're not working. That's not untrue, okay? It is because over 80% of jobs are gotten through the hidden market, right? It's not.
Yeah,
In fact, there's another expression. You need to show up before your resume. So we are talking
exactly.
about resumes today, but this isn't usually the way people get jobs. It is helpful. It can be helpful, right? If somebody is seeing your resume first, but honestly, networking is typically the way that people land these days.
Exactly. And there's also with the keywords, if it isn't an ATS tracking system, you need to have those keywords in your
Exactly.
resume to get it noticed by the
That's right.
tracking system. So it's not spit out or goes into that black hole.
You got it. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
just all of these tips are little tiny pebbles in the pond. It's not the whole pond, but it's just little
right.
you can do to increase your chances.
Exactly. Someone asked, why are background checks done after an offer? They said that doesn't seem to make sense.
'Cause first of all, background checks are expensive.
Mhm.
They're expensive. They're last I knew, a couple $100 could be per person.
Mhm.
So there's no way that an employer would want to spend that kind of money on doing background checks on everyone. What they'll typically do is the very, very last step, usually of either the finalist candidate or maybe the last couple. That's when they're actually going to lean into background checks, reference checks, all of those things.
Okay, and lastly, and then I'll let you continue. Someone suggested that going back further than 10 years might might set you up for like age discrimination, and also more than 2 pages. They've been
Yeah.
told it's like the death knell of, in the private
No, no,
sector.
I'm here to officially tell you that is not the case. And I
Okay.
recognize that all resume writers and recruiters, we all have different opinions. That particular thing is not the case. In fact, let me suggest this. If you are which I think most everyone here is, we would all and myself included, we will consider ourselves seasoned employees, right? If you are seasoned, um, if you only put 10 years of experience on your resume, you actually can look underqualified
Mm.
if you're going for a higher level title,
Hmm.
director above, that kind of thing. If you put 10 years, it makes you look like you only have 10 years of experience, which is not going to be substantive enough for a lot of the roles that people at our stage are going to be looking for. And then the other thing about the 2-page thing, I've been recruiting since 1994. Okay. I remember the days when, and we probably all do, when we licked an envelope or sent a fax, right? All the things. Those were the days when the employers were telling you only do 1 to 2 page resumes. Why? Because they were physically flipping pages or taking it out of a fax machine. You didn't want, and they didn't want to look at multiple pages. So it's that old joke, hey, mommy, why are we cutting the end of the ham off? And then you finally talk to great grandma. She says, because my pan was too small. Well, the pan was too small back then, right? Right now, 3 pages is not a problem. Why? Because we scan. It's a digital document. Scan, scan, scan. Now, again, beyond 3 pages, then it's already like too verbose. It's not even that they can't read it. It's just, okay, now you're not being succinct enough. We just want the quick highlights. So, and I'll say this too. Try to keep the bulk of your resume, like the accomplishments and the substance, on the first 2 pages. The third page is great for your education or volunteer experience or awards or things like that. That's a really great place to put that stuff, if that helps.
Okay, thank you. There's more questions, but I'll let you continue and then we'll bring up some more
All
questions.
good, all good. And you're going to want to keep me honest on time here because I know we're about at 11:30. So keep me focused there. Action
Okay.
verbs, action verbs. So private sector resumes tend to be focused on you led, you expanded, you directed. Federal resumes tend to be oftentimes focused on compliance or focused on even passive verbs, like they might say ensured compliance. But on the action side of it is I did these things, right? Not just that I kept the policies well, right? But I did something that was actually actionable. And that leads into having a tangible accomplishment. You want to make sure where possible, not every bullet has to do this, but you want to make sure where possible that you have metrics. They're metric focused. Now with the government, that's a little harder only because you're not raising revenue. Nobody in the government other than the IRS actually, right, it raises revenue, but I'm sure, save costs. I'm sure you streamlined operations, maybe process improvement, whatever, but you did something to create impact for the organization. So if you do have some sort of cost savings, please, any sort of numbers that you can put in there, do. You don't have to, but it's very, very helpful when you do. And then, again, this is particularly for my federal friends, no jargon. I know the government resumes tend to have lots of alphabet soup acronyms. The private sector has no idea what those things, no idea what those things mean. And so I would recommend not using jargon, or if you have to have an acronym, spell it out. No supervisor's name, contact of your supervisor, the hours you work, your salary, your birth date, none of those things are important. Only thing that's important to them, employer name, title, dates of employment, and your accomplishments, okay? So let me focus again here on how to customize your resume. So I mentioned that the keywords are focused on, or recruiters are focused on keywords, and here's where they scan, okay? Does the career headline match the job? I really want to encourage you to have a career headline. I'm going to show you an example of that in a second, and try to tailor it, right, for the opportunity as much as possible. Are those core functional skills visible, and are they relevant? And again, I'll show you where to put that. It's the resume chronological. I want to address this one. This has nothing to do really with a federal resume shift, but I know a lot of people think, oh, I should do what's called a functional resume. And a functional resume is where you have a keyword or a skill, and then you have an accomplishment, and rinse and repeat, and you have that on your first page. And then like the second page, it'll say work history, company title date, company title date. That does not work for private sector employers. In fact, it doesn't work for federal either. And the reason is that if you do it that way, the employer doesn't know where you accomplished what. they see your accomplishments, but they can't match it to any jobs. So what I recommend is what's is called a hybrid, a chronological functional resume. And again, you'll see it in a second. It's chronological. However, the accomplishment stories are labeled with with related skills. They are short bullets, but they have related skills. So instead of having it all on the first page, you have it down the page, and it's very, very scannable. Is there sectoral relevance? This is where you can highlight, if you do have sectoral relevance, you come from the same community, you can put that in your career headline. Sometimes you could actually have a separate section where you say, industry related skills or subject matter expertise, things like that. For example, you're in the environmental sector and you come from EPA and you worked on, I know a lot of you wouldn't know this acronym, but you worked on TSCA regulations, TSCA. It's a particular chemical substance, right, that EPA regulates. Well, maybe in the for-profit side, hey, they're also wanting to make sure that as a company we're compliant with TSCA regulations. Okay, so you can put some industry or some sectoral relevance in your resume if needed. Here's what they don't scan for, and here's where I want to save you real estate on your resume. On the resume, not the interview, on the resume, recruiters are not looking for behavioral skills. That you're a team player, that you're analytical, critical thinker, strategic, any of those things. They care about those things. They just don't care on the resume. They don't have time for that. And frankly, most job seekers, when they list all of those lovely behavioral skills, it's a little bit of wasted real estate because everybody says the same thing. So there's nothing distinctive on the resume about those skills, because when the employers, if they see like a summary, which I don't believe in having a huge summary, but if you did have a summary section, a lot of people are saying, oh, I'm a strategic thinker and all of these things. Because they haven't met you yet, there's nothing that distinguishes you saying you're a strategic thinker from somebody else. So what they do is they wait for the interview, then they ask you behavioral interview questions, describe a time when you used your critical thinking skills or strategic skills, and then you can share a story, and then they hear you and they get to know you, and that's where behavioral skills matter. So I would eliminate that from your resume, just focus on the core functional skills, things you do. Your analysis, your customer service, your project management, all of those things, but not the behavioral. Okay. Now, Anne, I share with you an email. These 3 links. If you Google, how to transition a federal resume to a private sector resume, a bunch of articles come up. Here are 3. All right. So you don't even have to take a picture because Anne's got them and she's going to put them in chat right now. Okay. And these are great articles, and they'll give you lots and lots and lots of detail of how to make the transition. Similarly, here's an article on how to create an ATS friendly resume. There are tons of articles. There are YouTube videos. I mean, there's so many people who are talking about how to navigate the ATS. Highly recommend that you check that out. Okay, now I'm going to get practical. I'm going to give you a sample branded resume. So what I'm about to show you is actually I'll call it a composite of a resume, a couple of resumes that I've done. All right, so this is not a real. These are 2 real people, but I kind of put them together just to sanitize it. And I'm going to show you this as a concept. All right, so here's my made up person named John Smith, an education nonprofit leader. Right now, I want you to notice here. Okay, I put the community with the lane. Okay, so he's in the education sector, in the nonprofit sector, but I could have put leader, I could have put professional, or I could have put, let's say he was an educator, he was a curriculum designer, those kinds of things. What you want to make sure that you're doing is, if you have a sectoral side to you, make sure to include it. So for example, you're not just a marketing communications professional, you are a nonprofit marketing communications professional. On the other hand, let me say this, not everybody has a sector. It may be that you are a cross-sectoral person. You're a cross-community person. You have had 5 communities, 5 sectors, right, in the course of your career. However, if one of those directly relates to the kind of sector that you're going into, the kind of community you're going into, this would be the place to mention it. Employers love it when you list their sector on your career headline. And the other thing I wanted to point out here is the leadership competencies. Now, you don't have to call them leadership if you don't feel that that's your label. It could just be competencies. But that section there is a really, really great place for those quick key words. Okay. This is where one of the quick places in that nanosecond scan where they might see, hey, oh, great. partnership expansion, culture building, whatever it is that is relevant to that job, this is a good place to put it. Okay. Now, this would be right below it. And this is your experience. And I'm going to highlight several sections here. So first of all, I want to look at this first paragraph. This first paragraph underneath the title, this is the only place that you should have what I would call a job description. A job description, not the rest of your resume, only right here. This is where you give the high level, hey, here's what I was responsible for, right? I provided strategic direction for the education and membership initiatives. I did this, I did this. And by the way, oh, this is important to employers. This is the level amount of budget that I managed. If you managed a budget, if you didn't, that's fine. And supervised employees, if you did, right? This is the place to do that. They really appreciate that. And even if you didn't manage a budget, but you were somehow connected to write a budget, any numbers you can put in there is very, very helpful. The next thing I want to mention are these keywords. See, expanded, or in the next bullet, improved or launched. These are action verbs. This lets the employer know, hey, I did something. It wasn't just that I ensured something, I actually proactively did something. I also want to mention here a metric, right? Resulted in growing the program over 300%, right? Representing $70,000 in revenue. If you have those metrics, great. Now you'll notice like the third bullet here doesn't necessarily have that, but you don't need it, but if you do have any metrics, those can be helpful. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is the label. And that is one of the most important areas of this resume is labeling your accomplishment stories. And again, I want to emphasize this. These are accomplishments. They are not job duties. They're not job duties. How do you even write this? Or how do I write it, right? When I work with my clients, like people like yourself, we have a formula. Now this formula, people have lots of names for it. I use what's called CAB, challenge, action, benefit. Some people use STAR, situation, task, action, result, or situation, action, result. A lot of formulas, it's all the same thing. It's a story. What was the context of the story? What were the actions? What were the results? And when you write the bullet, you sort of flip it and you can, either start with the result or you can start with the action, but at least it helps you write the bullet because you have a nice story. By the way, those CAB stories or STAR stories, they repurpose into your interview stories. So this is actually a multi-purpose kind of an exercise as you're writing the resume, right? You can actually be prepping for your interviews. So I'm also going to give you a little sample for any IT people we have on this call. IT employers for scanning for IT folks love to have the technical skills right up front. Okay, so having some sort of text box like this with lots and lots of tech skills is a really helpful thing. But even tech people, right, can still do this concept of labeling an accomplishment story. All right. Really quick, I want to mention AI. And when I say AI, I'm specifically talking about ChatGPT and Claude. If you want help tailoring your resume, you can do that, okay? You can upload the job description of the posting and then sections of your resume into ChatGPT or Claude. You can ask it to offer you keywords that align with the role. You absolutely can do that. However, it's simply a tool to get you started with the customization. You need to create your own accomplishment stories. AI doesn't know what you've done in the past, right? It's only knows what you feed it. You need to ensure the sectoral relevance and you need to edit the document to make sure that it doesn't hallucinate because it does do these things. It absolutely can be helpful, but just as a starting point, okay? It's not the ending point. And I have noticed, by the way, not just with resumes, but with LinkedIn, and please everyone listen up when I say this, okay? I have been noticing people who've been using AI to write the about section of their LinkedIn profile, and AI has been hallucinating and making things up, and the person doesn't change what it hallucinates, and so it literally is lying, right? It's not saying anything that's true. And I have noticed this when I've talked to people like, oh my gosh, Susie, I'll say, look, you've done da 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 in your about section. They're like, oh, actually, no, I didn't. I'm like, oh my gosh, you need to clean up whatever ChatGPT put in. So I recommend not use, if you could use it to start it off, but I recommend really writing your own about section. I mean, I write them too, but the point is that use it just as a tool, not as the end all be all. Okay. And then finally, making sure that that your resume actually matches the role, right? Just some people call a ChatGPT like having an executive assistant. or an assistant, somebody who's going to help you pull things together, but then you're actually going to make it what you need to be. Okay, so I'm going to end with this. I'm going to share some things, and then Jody, happy to answer some last questions. And I'm putting something else here on this slide. And I actually, right before I jumped on the call, I sent you another email. Not sure if you got it. And I wanted to let folks know about a new community service initiative that I just started. It's called Higher Vision. And it's specifically to help this community, the federally disrupted folks, federal employees, NGOs, federal government contractors, to recareer into the non-governmental private sector and also into self-employment. This is a free community service, and I started it out a couple of weeks ago on Saturday. I did a workshop, a 3-hour workshop. The recording link is here. Again, I'm hoping, Anne, if you can grab that from your email and put that into chat. There was a part 1, part 2, but it's all the same thing. I just had a technical glitch in the middle. And the slide deck is there as well. And that's the first thing I want to let you know. And then the major aspect of this initiative is that I'm hoping that we're going to be starting weekly job support groups. We're hoping that we're expecting that this is going to be to catch fire very quickly, and we'll have lots and lots of people. So I have volunteers right now, as we speak, like 20 to 30 volunteers who've stood up with me and said, I want to help. And so as we speak, we're all figuring out how to help you guys. We're going to stand up one weekly group to start with. We're going to call it Higher Vision Central. And then the intention is to do spin-off groups, Higher Vision Healthcare, Higher Vision Education, Higher Vision International Development, and so forth, where folks can gather on a weekly basis in their little community pods, get tips like this, networking, job sharing, all of the things. And so right now, if you would like to join our community, there is a Google sheet that we've started. Again, and hopefully you can put that in the chat. And we have like 40 something people who've already signed up for it. You can put in your name, your lane, your community. Now you know what that is. If you would like to be part of a group, put your email in and we will reach out to you when we actually get launched. I'm thinking we'll get launched in the next month or so, at least with the main Higher Vision group. And then again, organically, we're going to grow hopefully to other pods, and then we'll have a website. I mean, we really want this to be an organization that is able to service as much of the community as possible. So there you are. So Jody, I'm happy to entertain other.
Okay. Now we are, Anne, what is, because we are at 11:49 and there are a lot of questions. I know, Sherry, you cannot jump into chat afterwards. Is that correct?
Actually, I might be able to, but I honestly, is there any way that we can stay on for a few minutes, or do we have to jump off right now?
Anne?
Well, what I would like just people to know is if there are questions that you want, share, or I'm sorry, if you've seen questions in chat and Sharon may or may not be able to answer a couple of these questions, please feel free to hang in there with us. But right now, the other folks, if you need to take a break, please get up and stretch. And then at noon, we're going to come back and start with our employer. And our first employer is Fairfax County Public School Office of Transportation Services. So that's where we're at. And I will put everything that Shira asked for in the chat. And you'll also receive it again in a couple days.
Okay, sure. So I have lots of questions for you.
Happy to stay on, because I have a very hard stop at right a little before noon. So
okay, let's see. What about providing references? Can you say references will be provided if I'm selected for an interview or if I'm a finalist for position?
Actually, I'm going to take it one step further. These don't even need to say any of that. It's
good.
Employers assume your references will be available, and they will typically usually check them at the end. So you'll just give it to them at the end.
Exactly. Don't waste good.
Don't waste, you don't have
exactly. Let's see. If retired, should this be communicated in the interview?
If you're retired, should it be communicated? If you're retired, should it be communicated in the interview?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't think so. I mean, if you left your last position because you retired and now you want to get back in the workforce, you can say that as your reason for leaving. Sure. Overemphasize that. But if someone says, hey, why did you leave your last job? Say, well, I did formally take a retirement package, but hey, I did my honey-do list and I'm ready to go back in the
Exactly. So someone said, it seems with AI and other resume info extractors, there's no need to design a resume. Do you agree?
Yes and no. It's very both. That's why this is a whole art and a science. It's not, on the one hand, correct, because AI doesn't care about formatting, but there are absolutely times when a pair of eyeballs is going to look at your resume. And for those situations, you need it well designed. But at the same time, it also has to be ATS friendly so that the ATS can read it. So again, there's no one way to do it, but you just have to make sure that whatever design you do have is ATS friendly, but don't
Yes.
not design it because you think it's just going to be read by ATS. In fact, for smaller employers under 200 or certainly under 100, and here in the DMV, we got lots of small employers, they don't use
Mhm.
they don't use AI. A lot of them are just regular people, an HR person, a hiring manager. They're just looking at your resume, and you because you never know who's going to be seeing it. Definitely go with the design, but go with a design that is ATS friendly.
Right. I mean, you don't want to over design because, like,
Not
yeah.
over design, but don't under design either. No Courier font, right? You know what I'm saying?
Right. Exactly.
Knock yourself
Exactly.
out.
Someone said, Shira, could you please share an example of a resume that includes a career gap and shows how to address it effectively?
I appreciate the question. Unfortunately, I don't have time to go find that in my
Okay.
my samples, but
Mhm.
I am going to verbally share with you. Okay, if
Sure.
career gap, and it goes back to what I was sharing earlier with that personal sabbatical. First of all, let's two things. If it was a decent length, like 2, 3, 4 years, you can simply say personal sabbatical. Okay. If it was like a year or so, no one really looks at that kind of thing. You don't even have to address it. But if it is some lengthy time, and it could be, full-time homemaker or full-time caretaker or whatever, that kind of thing, that's how I would address it. And then again, have one line describing it without saying anything that's medical or anything that relates to what would be considered a protected class. So your marital, you want to avoid your marital status, any child status, medical status, like I said, anything like that would be protected. But if you just want to say family or just anything personal, like the word personal is fine, but just a very, very short section there on your resume.
Okay. In a private resume, what should the be said on the first page for an IT field? Can coveted certifications help?
Yes. Oh my goodness. They are looking for, especially for the IT world, your certification should not only be put on your resume, I would put them closer to the top, but more importantly, next to your name. So John Smith, comma, ITIL, PMP, whatever it is. You can literally, I have seen people have it long, like almost like their name and their certifications almost take up the entire line because they have so many. That's okay. And it's not just for IT people. You might be I don't know, your CPA, or you're again a PMP, or you're an HR and you have a SHRM certification, right? If you have an active certification, put your name, comma, and then the certification, and you can put multiple.
Great. How do you handle a wide array of positions held for varying periods of time? Can the resume leave out dates of work from like time X to time Y?
No. Employers are very much looking for the chronology. It's important to them. They like to look at tenure sometimes, although tenure is not as important these days as it used to be because most employers understand job hopping. But yeah, you don't want to have like, these 3 jobs have the dates and then that job doesn't have a date. They're going to wonder why. So yeah, it's now you don't have to have months. You can just put years. That might help a little bit to kind of give it a little, make it not quite as exacting, but yeah, you definitely need all the dates. For as far back as you're going, like I said, I wouldn't recommend anything beyond 20 years.
Okay. Let's see. This is a question about LinkedIn. Is it a good idea or not to add open to work on your profile picture?
My gosh.
And I know. And how about posting that you're looking for work and asking for leads?
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to give you my quick, yeah. And then we might have to, this might be the last question. All right, I'm going to slow down when I say this. Number one, I'm not going to give you advice on this, and here's why. There are 2 schools of thought, very legitimate schools of thought that where there's a different and a pro and a con. Here's the pro side, the yes side. When you put open to work, you are letting your network know that you're looking for a job. There are many people who have gotten a job because they put open to work, because their network now knows they're looking for a job. And they write in there, "Hello, Susie. Wow, I didn't know. Tell me, how can I help you?" Beautiful, lovely. Yay. That's the pro side. The con side is some people suggest that it makes you look desperate. It's a psychological thing. I'm not saying whether it does or doesn't, everybody's different, but there is that perception out there. It's legit. Some people feel that way. And so some people recommend don't put it down. So I'm not going to advise right now, other than to say, if you are an active job seeker and you are starting your search, that might be the time when you put the open to work to alert your community that you are. And by the way, this next piece I am going to stand on. Do not put in your career headline, seeking new opportunities.
Mm.
The main reason is this. That's not how people screen your LinkedIn. This is a whole other conversation, Jody. As you know, I do this training with Gateway, right, every other month. So,
Uh-huh.
here's what I will say about LinkedIn. Employers, recruiters, even your network sometimes, but employers, recruiters are trying to find you on LinkedIn. And what they'll do is they'll use the search bar in the top. As a recruiter, I do this myself. So I'll say I'm looking for a director of marketing. I'll put director of marketing in the title, in the search bar. LinkedIn's algorithm first correlates your career headline to whatever was in that search bar. So if I put director of marketing, because that's the person I'm looking for, guess what's going to show up on my page 1, 2, and 3? People whose career headlines start with director of marketing. If yours says seeking new opportunities, you're not on my first, second, third, and maybe not on any page, okay? Because this is not about your search. This is about you being branded and found by employers. This is LinkedIn. Your LinkedIn page is a website. It quite literally is a website. It is a www dot. So just like if you were going and looking for a hairdresser, a dentist, or anybody, and you did a Google search, what's Google going to look at? It's going to look at how that company has branded itself. I'm a dentist, I'm a hairdresser, I'm a whatever. That's what's going to come up on page 1. It's the same thing with your career headline. Please, 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 please. The first few words of your career headline need to be the title, if you will. It doesn't have to say director of marketing, but close enough to that of what you're actually looking for. The open to work is just to alert your network. Again, maybe you could do it just for a little while, let your network know, and then maybe take it off. Again, that's not advice. It's just if you want to have maybe a hybrid approach, that would be a way to do it.
Sure. Okay.
And I've really got to jump off. I've got
Yes, sure. What would you like me? I don't know if I've copied the questions that were not answered. Do you want me to send them to you? Or what would you?
although I don't know if I'd be able to, if the people would actually be able to,
Exactly. Yeah.
what I would suggest is that
Mhm.
I do, you're welcome to reach out to me on LinkedIn. Okay.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm going to have the time to answer. I apologize. I have a really full schedule. Don't know if I'll have the time to answer all the questions. If you'd like to link in with me and pop in a question, I will do my best to answer it quickly. If you'd like to schedule a time with me, sometimes I can make time available.
Mhm.
We'll try to make.
Okay.
Oh, and by the way, too, what I do in addition to the Higher Vision, which again hasn't really started, I do offer a different bi-weekly free job support group, and everybody's gonna have to write this one down. I'll say it slowly. It's called Higher Moment Mastermind. It's a meetup group. We meet every other Friday, including this Friday from 9:15 to 10:15. That's an open Q&A for an hour. It's myself and a couple colleagues.
Wonderful.
I'm going to say it really slowly, okay? Meetup.com/hire, HIRE, dash moment, MOMENT, dash mastermind. Meetup.com/hire-moment-mastermind. That will give you the information. And that is a really good place to get these kinds of questions answered in a live setting.
Right. And also those who participate in the Career Gateway, you're going to see Shira on Tuesday.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Good job.
Thank you so much, Shira. This was
everyone.
fabulous. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Anne.